My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jaime Faria and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paulini and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
A long time no see, everybody in the chat. I mean, yeah, it's the first week of the season, so it's the first ATP Weekly as well. And of course, Vansh is joining me here for the talk about Hong Kong and, of course, the United Cup as well and Brisbane, as we are going to just get into these events. I mean, how are you enjoying tennis in 2025, Vansh? Because I think I saw a tweet from you that kind of said maybe there wasn't, enough of a break.
Yeah, I definitely felt that way, I would say, up until the first or up until the 31st first. But then after that, I mean, I was just all in, like everybody else, It's just like such good jam-packed action for about 7-8 days in a row. Like the United Cup is obviously great. And then, the tournaments in Brisbane and even Hong Kong. And there's some really great stories before obviously qualifying starts, and then the main draw was going to come out soon. So yeah, it's just full gear.
Yeah, qualifying starts in 21 minutes from here, so this is going to be an amazing, first day already. But yeah, I kind of agree with what you said in the sense that I don't really feel like there was an off season.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's a problem for me, but that's my that's my feeling. There was just so much that we did kind of in terms of content as well during the off season. I don't feel like we really slowed down in generally. Of course, a little bit. Yes, I had some more free time, sure. But I don't feel like I really got that much rest. And then the season just starts back up. And I always forget how quickly that Australian Open comes in, It's literally the first week of the season and already there's qualifying. So it really just doesn't waste any time. And, to an extent, I like it, but I don't really feel like I got that rest. That's I probably didn't need. But I wouldn't mind it maybe. Although it's also good to start earning money again. Anyway,
yes.
let's maybe talk about the United Cup first. That was kind of like the biggest event. Although of course it's very different to the usual ATP 500s, 250s, and etc. that we get on the tour. The title is once again with the United States, who also won the 2023 edition. And of course, the men's side of things, Taylor Fritz today defeating Hubert Hurkacz was the big one, and the one that allowed the United States to claim the win.
Yeah, certainly. I think coming into the United Cup, we kind of thought United States and Poland are the two biggest favorites, and they ended up meeting in the final. But it wasn't easy for especially Poland to get there, and then for the US, I think for the most part, they only had to play one. They only had to play one time mixed doubles, so it kind of speaks to how much of a sure bet in most of the matches Coco Gauff and Taylor Fritz were. That we only had them playing mixed together one time. So for the most part, yeah. I mean, but this was a close one. Like certainly Hurkacz and Fritz, it was actually quite enjoyable because Fritz was down 2-love in the third set tiebreak, and he had to come up with some good stuff there at the end. And Hurkacz just played like an amazing game to get the second set. They had like 4 winners basically. So, and there was this like one net cord, but already you could see that he was changing things around a bit more, like going after the forehand in the second set, and like for sure it always felt very, very razor tight. So, the fact that it finished in a third set tiebreak, of course he would have loved to win that, and then we'd be in a mixed doubles. But yeah, the whole thing, I think he gave a good account of himself in terms of, last year obviously he had a little bit of regret because he had the 2 match points against Zverev, and there was like one passing shot, if I remember correctly, like an opening that he had for sure. But here I think for the most part his level improved a lot throughout the whole week. Like he wasn't so good in the first couple of matches that he played, but then like kind of now you're seeing more or less he's working back up to the form that he had before the injury.
Yeah, I think overall definitely a positive showing for Hurkacz in the final. It's obviously a shame that he couldn't keep the match going for him, but it would have been a great revenge story because of what happened
Yeah.
to against Zverev. And kind of also like the general trend, the stereotype is that Hurkacz is probably going to choke in a big scenario. Did he quite do it? I'm not sure. I saw some takes from Polish fans, obviously, who are like, "Yeah, okay, this is just Hurkacz doing it again. Like, why can't he play one good match under pressure?" And or like, actually, no, everybody agrees that he played a good match, but why can't he play one good final tiebreak under pressure? And definitely there was some indecisiveness. The way he just started approaching, he was just a little bit behind. So you can see that maybe there was just more thoughts that didn't need to be in his brain were actually there. There was that big forehand he went for, like 3-4, which was pretty low margin, but I actually liked it. Like the setup was too perfect. Sometimes you have to go for it. The angle was there, so I don't mind that at all. But yeah, obviously he had a real shot. And even if he got it to the mixed, kind of like regardless of how that goes from there, that would have already been a massive win. But all things considered, like from the round robin stages, losing to Mahaj and Ruud, then of course beating Shevchenko and Haris, but these are not quite it's not the same player caliber. But against Fritz, he probably just proved that he's pretty much back to a solid level. We'll see how it goes in Australia, but he's kind of back. You mentioned that amazing game, but that was kind of the only one he had on return the entire match where he was any close to breaking Taylor.
Yeah, and then neither player had break points until the tiebreak, so it was really all about the tiebreak. I think there was a second serve he had at love too that he didn't quite time perfectly in the middle of his strings. And then there's another like backhand trade. They were just trading cross court, him and Fritz. I think 2-1 in the first set, or 2-1 in the breaker, and then once Taylor got the break back, then you have that forehand at 3-4. It's like basically these 3 points that I can think of that from love 2 to 7-4 in the final set breaker. So I think overall it was pretty slim margins, but yeah, I don't know how I feel about him at the Australian Open. He got to the quarters last year. I wonder if he'll be able to do that again. Depends on the draw, of course.
Well, I mean, he does look extremely solid at the moment, that's for sure. Just like, that sort of best of the rest feeling that we had about him the entire second half of last season. Like, he's definitely proving it right now. It's still uncertain that he's going to be able to, trouble Sinner, Alcaraz, Zverev, maybe even Medvedev or Djokovic. But, the consistency he has on the ground strokes while still, going for them pretty much is insane. Hurkacz definitely just couldn't afford to get into passive cross-court trades with him. That was already pretty huge for Fritz, because literally any rally that would eventually just end up with him, getting Hurkacz from side to side, he was going to win this. He's not going to miss in something like this. He's super safe there. Yeah. So Fritz was obviously one of the best performers of the United Cup. Even if obviously he started with a loss to Felix Auger-Aliassime, and you didn't really know if he was going to deliver. But in the end, also a pretty good showing for him. And I guess for Australia, he's just one of these guys who you don't really expect him to lose early in the slam. You just think, okay, he's gonna get a few rounds, and then we'll see. Which is also a big improvement on last few seasons, right? I mean, he was a guy who was getting losses to Brandon Holt and Mikael Ymer.
Yeah, and now he's gonna have his own quarter at the Australian Open as the number 4 seed. So that's expectations are much higher for sure in the majors, especially after what he did last year, where he was very good all around. Well, except for maybe that loss to Musetti in the quarters, you could maybe point to. But aside from that, I think it was a much better improvement from 2023 for sure. So I think that's kind of his main goal is just keep playing well at the big events, keep getting yourself there, and then when there's that one opening, just take it, like he did in New York. So yeah, I think pretty much I expected Fritz to kind of bounce back strong after that loss to Felix, where he didn't get the win, but overall, still very good week for Taylor. And but I guess we should probably talk about some of the other players in the United Cup who these played in later stages, like Thomas Mahach. What did you think about that match against Fritz and kind of the whole
I mean, weird way
meltdown
to go
and
out, but a great event for him. It's good to see that he's keeping up that late 2024, especially form when he also had a lot of like mid-match retirements. But just to see it in a team competition, of course, it's fine to retire. And he actually has withdrawn from Adelaide now, so I guess
Yeah.
it kind of legitimizes the whole thing. But just to do it before the set was even done was a little iffy to me. But he gets that win, and they are in the mix. And even if they lose, then Mahach is like probably the best men's singles performer of the entire event, or maybe it's Casper, even though he didn't make it out of the groups. But like literally something close to that. So the level was amazing. It ended up being a little weird. We had we had a lot of retirements on the ATP Tour this week, in not only the United Cup. We'll see how Mahach is in terms of the Australian Open. It's a very interesting point as well that Valdez is bringing up here, that like on the WTA Tour, we saw a lot of players who are going to be stars in Melbourne, whereas here, not really. But that's mostly because like Sinner and Alcaraz aren't playing, right? Like for the second year in a row, they just aren't playing before the Australian Open. So probably that's why it feels slightly less relevant. But as Vanch said, I mean, Fritz is going to have his own quarter, so I guess he actually is quite relevant. And someone mentioned Zverev too, who only, of course, played in the group stages, then also withdrew and allowed Daniel Masur to play a match against Shevchenko. Yeah, I mean, how worried are we? Should we be about Hurkacz's level? I think we definitely should not be worried. I also agree that about the forehand looking pretty sharp this week, especially down the line or inside in. What else was there here? Oh, there was also a question from the producer that I thought we should answer. Yeah, here. As a player, what would you prefer, to win a couple of singles matches but go out in the groups, or lose every match but your team nation wins the United Cup?
I guess I know it's like a kind of a United Cup, and like it's about your country and all of that. So obviously there is a bit of a nice silver lining. Like I suppose if you're, I don't know, Angelique Kerber from last year, right? that's probably an example I could think of, like just right off the bat. Would you rather be that, or would you rather be like a Casper Ruud, where you come out of it, you feel really good, but you also feel like kind of well rested ahead of the Australian Open? And I guess there's pros and cons to both, right? Because sometimes I also feel like this is so close to the Australian Open, and if you put so much of your energy and emotional investment into this thing like every single day for like 10 days, it could maybe burn you out a little bit before the start of the major, or you might be carrying something heading in. So I don't think it's like the worst thing individually if you just get 2 or 3 matches in, which you're guaranteed to, which is what's so good about the United Cup. And then after that, you kind of just get to Melbourne early and you practice. But I guess it kind of just depends what kind of player you are, right?
Yeah, I think obviously it is very individual how much you value the United Cup, but it doesn't have the sort of tradition that Davis Cup and Billie King Cup has. So I don't think like bringing it home for your country is as much of a big deal as it is with these two events for some players at the very least. So I would probably say win the matches. And also I like the rest argument too. You get into the group stage, you play 2 singles, let's say 1 mixed. And if you win all of that, you kind of come out, with everything you wanted, more or less. Whereas if you go for 5 singles matches plus 2 or 3 mixed, well, for some it might be too much. Yeah, like literally, yeah, it could happen. So I think that basically win the matches is the answer for almost anybody. But it could change if the United Cup ever like grows in stature. I'm not really sure how that would happen though.
Yeah, at the moment it's just nowhere near, Labour Cup or sorry, not Labour Cup, Davis Cup and Billie Jean King Cup. Like I think those are just,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the case. Well, we already kind of mentioned him, but like Casper Ruud was also looking very strong and kind of in his early 2024 form as well in the groups. Was there anyone who like kind of on the men's side surprised us, or I don't know, just performed very well? Probably not. Right? Somehow it was Group B that delivered all of the exciting men's performances. Mahach, Ruud, and sort of Hurkacz as well, just because we had no idea what to expect from him after a poor patch.
Yeah. I guess Shevchenko against Tsitsipas, but that was more, also Steph was, not at his best physically. I guess you also. I guess I was going to say Jinyu Gao, but that was on the women's side. This is ATP Weekly.
Yeah, exactly. We're not going to delve into Świątek and Goff. That already happened on the WTA Weekly earlier today. It's a big day for talking tennis with 3 streams almost in a row. There's some talk as well in the chat about Lendl and Masu. As Ghosty is saying, Lendl is like a consultant, more or less. So he's not going to be there for every event. So I don't think if Lendl and Hurkacz's personalities meshing, I'm not really sure if it's really a big deal considering that situation. Seems like Masu was definitely involved in the whole team as well, not only in Hurkacz's matches. And there were some fun quips as well when he was talking to Hurkacz that you are a strong server and then you fight. That's your quality. You gotta fight. There was something like that. I was actually a little worried when I heard about that because you would assume that when Hurkacz is bringing in some big coaches, that they're gonna be okay. What can we do about that forehand? We have to make you more aggressive, right? We have to make you use that ability to play at the net. And actually, this week was great proof of that. That he has to get to the net if he can, because the reach he has, the volleying skills, this is one of his assets, and he cannot just afford to be skipping that to get altogether. But in the end, I think Masu was also in other instances proving that he is actually enticing Hurkacz to play more aggressively as well. So in the end, I don't really know what sort of problems we could have sort of right off the bat with the whole coaching situation for Hurkacz.
Yeah, no, Hurkacz's goal has to just be to get to the net as often as he can, because his touch and his feel, especially on the backhand side, the backhand drop volley that he can hit is with quite a lot of pace or no pace to work with. It seems like he just has such good hands and feel. It's it's one of the best on tour for sure.
Exactly. And there's also some talk about Denis Kudla, who indeed played a dead rubber doubles in the semifinals, I think. So I think great send-off for him, right? It's not really we're not used to that, maybe the United Cup being the last event of a player's career, but I think it works very well for Denis. What else he could have done? Maybe a US Challenger somewhere. I'm not really sure where he's from Kiev, I guess, originally, but I'm thinking of where in the US he's living. I'm not really sure, but this works great. Just a good paycheck to finish off his career. Being on the team, getting that kind of good vibes from that whole scenario, and then of course also getting that mixed doubles match eventually, and also winning it.
Yeah, he gets to finish his career on a win, so that's not many people can retire like that. So.
Yeah, it's Sampras and Denis Kudla only.
Yeah, of course, I'll just remember all of his great grass court matches, like the 2015, he got to the 4th round of Wimbledon. Or 2018, he played Federer in the Halle semifinals. It was a good match. He played Djokovic also in Wimbledon, kind of tight for all 3 sets.
I definitely don't disagree with that. That was also a match that I had in mind. Jake is mentioning the tweet that I put out, just kind of trying to list his best achievements, and I was thinking about that match against Djokovic, and I couldn't quite put it there because it's 3 sets, right? He still lost his straights, but the 3rd set tiebreak especially was so exciting, and that's also one of my favorite memories of Denis for sure. On the ATP tour, to have 4 out of 7 quarterfinals on grass, that says a lot, because grass is literally just 3 weeks a year when you can do that, assuming you're not making it at Wimbledon. So yeah, I think that's also something that really proves that he was very much a grass court specialist the moment you go up a level, basically. On the Challenger Tour, he still got a lot of traction on green clay, on the hard courts especially, but when he played the main tour, clearly grass was the surface where he could be competitive. I think a 53 maybe career high for him, which I think is pretty solid. Just shouldn't really be that much higher, shouldn't be that much lower. So a very nice career, and definitely will be missed. Deadly flat backhand and a very fun player to watch. Also, so many people just say that he's one of the nicest dudes on tour. Haven't been able to check that out myself, but I can imagine that's probably the case. I think that more or less covers the men's side on the United Cup, I suppose. We didn't get the mixed in the final. In fact, I don't think in the knockout stages generally mixed wasn't really coming into play all that much, right?
Yeah.
Every single match in the knockout stages, was finished after the singles, which is a shame because the mixed is kind of like the centerpiece of this event sometimes. And definitely one of the most exciting moments in the group stage came from that mixed doubles finisher. However, unfortunately, nothing like this in the knockouts. So I think we can just move on to Brisbane and Hong Kong. Let's maybe get on with Brisbane first, where we had Ishida Hechka picking up another title in Australia. And this is like the third year in a row when he starts very strong in the down under swing. 2023, of course, Australian Open quarterfinals, the kind of the biggest result of these. But last year, the title in Adelaide, now the title in Brisbane. So, there's a clear pattern there. And hopefully this time he will be able to do it the entire season.
Yeah, definitely. He plays great in Australia. The last 3 seasons in a row is proof. And also he beat Holger Rune in the first match, and that was quite decisive as well for the most part. And then against Dimitrov, he was looking really good before Dimitrov also. It was cut short because he had that injury, but overall he was just playing really well, just striking the ball so cleanly and like just going after the returns, like just very, very same kind of brand of tennis that he was playing in 23 and 24 in Australia. So this time, and also I kind of remember last year he finished last year like around 25 or 26 maybe in the world, but he also had like 3 months where he was injured, right? So I kind of feel
and
like
that was last year. That was like huge months because he missed 3 massive events: Roland Garros, Wimbledon, and the Olympics.
Yeah, and also he semifinals and finals retirement. He won those by retirement. That's the first time that's happened in like I forget how long, but it's been like I don't think it happened this century. That he won both the
retirement.
semifinals.
I didn't see that stat, but I imagine it's pretty rare. Do you think that takes away from his
I don't
run
think so.
at all?
I was gonna say I don't think so because the eye test was so good, like the whole week, and so I don't think it takes that much away from him. Plus, he also knows what that's like in himself because in Madrid that happened to him in the semis there.
He was breaking serve at home. Like
Yeah.
I think he was like the top of the event in terms of the stats. So so that was also something quite special. Of course, we didn't really know if it was going to hold up against Riley. Well, in the end, he had a 50% break percentage against Opelka, but that was, of course, more injuries than anything else. But speaking of the big dude, Riley Opelka, he is back. I mean, he's back.
The story. He's the story of Brisbane. He's got to be, right? Yeah.
But there are some issues. The wrist, the back. But level-wise, he was back. And also Denis Kudla, by the way. He is now part of his coaching team. So that's another...
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, Opelka is just like... I was watching him the whole week and I was like, wow, this is different than Isner and Karlovic. Just because, I mean, I knew that before, but I guess I kind of just... I didn't expect this. I didn't expect him to be back like this good and play that well from the baseline. I knew he could. I knew he's like a good mover for his height. I knew he has a good backhand, but also the forehand was just firing. I mean, the match against, and it's not only the match against Djokovic, because it wasn't just like, okay, one peaking performance against a top player, but he actually backed it up really well against Giovanni Becci-Pericard. So I thought it was like, I thought that was sensational. Even though he didn't win the tournament, like all 3 of those matches in a row, Arnaldi and the Djokovic and this one, he was just super, super impressive.
Yeah, I didn't catch too much of his first 2 matches. So Arnaldi and who was it first round? Federico Agustin Gomez, I think.
Yeah, I didn't catch that, but I think that was
and
the only time we
thinking,
didn't have time.
I had no idea like how well Riley was playing. I knew that 7-6, 7-6 over Arnaldi, even though I just saw a few points. Yeah, I wasn't sure, but then of course against Novak, like that was just pure redlining. His ground game has always been really strong, but the way that he was hitting like backhand cross-court winners for fun against Novak there, we'll see kind of what it means for Djokovic going forward in terms of, maybe his hand-eye coordination on return declining at this point. I don't know, maybe also because he used to be super just clean against big servers. But I think Riley on the day was just spectacular anyway. And it's a shame that he wasn't able to continue. Already struggling with that wrist against GMP, but he fought through it. It wasn't really impacting his serve all that much. But today, it was apparently the back that stopped him. Even the last point, Lehechka, plays a drop shot. Riley doesn't really move to it. I don't think we know this yet, Ghosty, whether this is going to be, whether he's out of the Australian Open. But yeah, we have a lot of players with like these sort of injury concerns at the moment, including Dimitrov, of course, who was also retiring in the semifinals against Lehečka. Dimitrov, though, felt a little, at least that felt a little more like, preemptive, whereas with Opelka, he literally couldn't play today. Of course, Opelka wasn't going to like retire from a final after not being in a final for 2 years. He wasn't just going to retire in the final because, if it wasn't anything super serious, but hopefully he will be able to get back in shape by the time Melbourne rolls around, as he would be one of the few players that I think could really just, be a massive factor in that draw out of the unseeded guys.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, amongst the dangerous floaters, I'll be curious to see where he lands. But I guess it's the same as like with Kyrgios, but with Kyrgios also it's the rest, and with him it's
Let's mention Kyrgios actually. I mean, he had a 36 straight service holds match against Giovanni Pecci-Pericard, two of the biggest servers on tour. I mean, nothing really like weird about that. But yeah, I mean, what did you think about his quality in that one? And also, of course, he played the two doubles matches with Novak.
Yeah, I mean, I thought for the most part, the serve, the net game, everything, the talent that we always saw was basically there. But then I also kind of got the feeling towards the end of the match, like, is this risk going to hold up in best of 5? So I kind of don't know. Like I'm like 50-50 about whether he's even going to play the Australian Open at this point, and I'm not expecting like a deep run.
Oh, you're saying Nick is a 50-50 whether he's going to play? Interesting.
Yeah, I just don't know with the wrist.
Okay. So where did the maybe I wasn't watching the doubles too much. Was like the wrist issue flaring up there against Mektic Venus, or?
No, I mean it's mostly fine. I think he's altered his service motion and his forehand a little bit, so that the wrist is less of a factor on those two shots. But I just don't know. In best of 5 how it'll really hold up. I guess it also kind of depends on the draw. Like if he's able to avoid like in a sense this matchup is good for him, like against Giovanni Pecci-Pericard, but also it's like it doesn't really tell me that much, if that makes sense. Like you kind of knew that there were going to be at least 2 or 3 tie breaks, and then you don't really learn a ton. But actually, if he was playing more of a grinder, or if he was playing like, I don't know, Roberto Carballes Baena, or somebody that like he had to work maybe a little bit harder to get win some longer rallies against, maybe that would tell me a little bit more. But I'm kind of just like not so sure whether he actually will be that big of a dark horse or threat in Melbourne.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just kind of assuming.
I don't feel like he's that ready for best of 5 right now.
I was just kind of like assuming that he would play, to be honest. But well, maybe. And also, when it comes to Kyrgios, I very much agree with what you said about Pecci-Pericard being kind of like the best and the worst matchup at the same time to come back against, because, well, you know that you're gonna be in for a pretty easy ride in terms of just getting to the tie breaks, getting easy holds, not losing like 6-2, 6-2 because it's impossible. But on the other hand, you're not really gonna get much rhythm out of it. So I mean, I would like to see Kyrgios back in shape by the time the Australian Open rolls around. Based on his level this week, it's probably possible. Based on his physicality, I mean, who the hell knows? But certainly, he's also one of these guys I would be like looking out for in the draw in terms of, I don't want to get them as a seeded player just because of how random it can get sometimes. How does Nick says?
Yeah, I think 29. I think he'll be 30 in April.
That's what I want to say. Yeah, 29, 30 in 95. In 95. He was born in 95. I want to say 30 in April. So from Brisbane, is that more or less it as well? I guess it would.
Yeah, I guess for Novak, do you see that? How did you see that loss? Because was it more like just Rally played out of his skin, incredible, or is there anything you can actually deduct from it in terms of decline or something like that, or his chances? It really changed your opinion about him in Melbourne? That loss?
Too early, I think. I can't say that, like, even though I previously believed he can beat pretty much anybody but Sinner Alcaraz, I can't say that this really like changed that opinion. In the best of 5 formats, I don't know if he wins that much in particular, but it would still take like an absolutely spectacular performance for Opelka to take him out, either in a best of 3 or in a best of 5, really. So unless someone like this is going to be running into Novak, or maybe we see some motivation issues again, which I don't think we will, yeah, I think he's still like pretty capable of defeating almost anybody in the draw. It's more whether he can handle the top guys, and I don't think this event really told me that much. He played Hijikata, was an easy match. He played Monfils, same. I don't think he even he definitely wasn't broken. I don't remember if he saved the breakpoint. And then Opelka, yeah, he just had an absolutely spectacular showing that on the day probably would have beaten almost anybody in the world. So I'm not ready to give you any big time conclusions. I know that some people were kind of jumping to them in like Twitter comments after that match. I think it's a bit early. Definitely would like to hold off for at least a few more days.
Yeah.
I mean, a
actually
few more days.
double,
Yeah,
I actually put his double across 3 matches was pretty good. And so he gets 3 matches here plus 2 doubles. So it's not really too much of a worry.
Novak only had one daytime match in the last 200. Well, I don't even know what the number is. 2,626,272, and he lost that match, right? Which last year, of course, for Djokovic fans was the reason they were kind of just like trying to excuse it with, I guess. I don't know if it played into it really. I mean, he definitely had a pretty poor showing against Sinner overall, but we also know what Sinner did in general in 2024. I think for Brisbane that more or less covers it. And in Hong Kong we had a more unexpected champion, and especially considering how his week played out. This time I am ready with some stats. I mean, he is the first player to win 5 matches in a row to win an ATP Tour title, all from a set down. Bublik had 4 last year at Montpellier, 2024. Also in 1975, there were the like WCT finals that Arthur Ashe won like this, but it's just 3 matches, and it's a very different format. So I would say Bublik and Miller really, but Miller's achievement is even a little bit better, considering that he had 5 matches to play. He also saved 2 match points against Kecmanovic. By the way, Bublik also saved match points in that round that I mentioned against Shapovalov in the second round. And yeah, I mean, at some point he just started joking that this was the tactic, right? That with his coach, they were just like, yeah, I mean, we're going to lose the first set, but we're going to win the match. And today, the same thing happened against Kei Nishikori as he won 2-6, 6-1, 6-3.
Yeah, I was quite stunned at the last 2 sets he played against Nishikori, because that's like much above the level that I was expecting Muller to play at. I mean, I kind of had I'd seen that he had like really great resolve throughout all those matches. The Kecmanovic one you mentioned, also the Feast one. Well, I kind of was more. It was I chalked it more up to a poor showing by Arthur rather than anything spectacular from Muller, to be honest. But the final really impressed me because, yeah, he was really like outgunning Kei from the baseline, and kind of after he lost that first 2 sets, it wasn't even actually that close. At times in the third, he could have broken even earlier. So I was impressed by his performance in the final for sure. I didn't get to see a ton of him else apart from that throughout the whole week, honestly.
Yeah, me neither. Honestly, today when I turned on the Hong Kong final, I was just like, okay, so this is how the court in Hong Kong looks like, Like I really missed so much of that event. I was kind of surprised, but I guess it makes sense because for the most part, I was watching a lot of the United Cup. I was watching a lot of the challengers in Canberra and Numea and Nonthaburi. And then Hong Kong would kind of come at like the morning time zone for me in Europe, which is when I usually slept. So like I stayed up until 6, 7. And when the Hong Kong action finally began, that's usually where I had my my sleep this week. So yeah, I really didn't catch that much of the event. And Alexander Miller, yes, I think I only watched this match. It would have been so hilarious if Jaume Munar won a hardcourt title. And he was pretty close to making that final.
Almost did it. Yeah, almost made the final.
He also had this match with Nishikori last year where he was losing 2-6, 0-4, and then suddenly he just starts like, getting to everything. Kei eventually like wears out. I think that's also primarily what happened in the Hong Kong final, right? I mean, Kei, we know that physically he is at this point, it's just really tough for him to keep going for like a few matches in a row. I thought that maybe the fact that he had such a short affair against Shang in the semis would be enough, especially considering Miller had like twice as much playtime. But yeah, when he faces someone who is this relentless off the ground and yeah, just so consistent, just like Miller is, it can be a bit tough. I think in the second set, especially, Kei had this 3 winners and 17 unforced errors or something like that.
Yeah, he just felt like he had to, press very early in rallies, and it wasn't. Whereas in the first set, that really wasn't the case. It was he was able to win a lot more shorter points, and I didn't. I thought I thought the momentum would continue for longer than it did, but it just completely flipped, and then Kane never really found a way out of it. I don't know if he was struggling that much physically in the final, but then I also like he's not that match tough yet. Like it was still very good for him to get to the final, get that experience. I actually looked at he's lost 10 of his last 11 finals, which is pretty crazy because he had a very good 2016 and he had very good 2018, 19 as well, but he just hasn't been winning that many. He hasn't got that one big ATP title win. Hopefully he gets that before his career is over.
Yeah, definitely that was still an improvement. He's back in the top 100. He still has a few months where he's not defending any points because last year he played Miami and then he's out all the way until the French. So it's entirely possible for him to keep going. It would be nice if he gets that title indeed, kind of similar to Cilic last year, of course, in Hangzhou. That probably one final title for either player would be pretty nice, but he missed a big chance here, definitely. It was Alexander Miller's second ATP Tour final, but he was going for his first title. Generally, ball striking wise, it's not quite a mismatch, but there's a big edge for Nishikori there. So it's not clear that an opportunity like this will present itself anytime soon, especially as we know what sort of a glass pane cannon Nishikori can be. And speaking of that sort of like injury volatile players, Yuncheng Shang was in the semis too. Anything to like worry about in terms of him? Because next gen finals he's sick. Hong Kong he's sick now.
Yeah, it was kind of the same thing, right? Illness from the similar type of what he had in the like flu-like symptoms or something. Like it was a next gen, but actually, I thought he was going to get over it the way he played the way he was running through the draw in the beginning. I kind of thought he would have recovered or something by now. I don't know if he re-got a virus or if it was just kind of a continuation of the next gen. But maybe I don't know, a week will be enough, and we'll see him playing best of 5 again in the first couple of rounds, or maybe it's actually something more serious. Hard to tell, to be honest.
Yeah, illness generally doesn't last that long, I guess. But on the other hand, I mean, Jerry already had mono a few years back, so it's really not that. Sometimes it can actually stop you from competing well for a longer period, let's say.
Yeah.
What else was there in Hong Kong? Was there anything of note other than that Jaume Munar story?
Well, I did watch some bits of Cam Norrie. He looked pretty good. Well, he looked pretty decent until the semis. Of course, there was that amazing point that Nishikori played in the third set to get the break, and that was part of. I think K actually, I would say for me, even though he lost the final, I mean the wins over Hachinov and Norrie were pretty impressive. That's probably the ones where I was like, okay, so he can still consistently beat top 30 players on his day, pretty regularly. Except, it's just a question of the body and how it'll hold up, and can he actually last 4 or 5 matches in a row. But he kind of showed he still got it there. Aside from that, I don't know if there was really a ton.
Yeah, and Cam right now, of course, has his hometown event in Auckland. Oh, by the way, there was a question earlier about Nishikori. Yeah, he's on a PR. He saved up his last one for Australia. So he is on a PR in Australia. Australian Open qualifying, yes, it's literally just started. Which qualifying match am I watching first? It's Habib Gibson, I think, is in the first slot. I think that's one of the best ones. What else was there? Maybe that's it.
For Hong Kong, there was also Musetti, who I thought would beat Munar, but he ended up losing that one. Some chances at the end of the second set.
Maybe crazy head by now.
Yeah, like 4-0 for Munar or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of thought that was an opportunity for Lorenzo to maybe make another hardcourt final after Naples. I thought maybe he could change the narrative around a little bit. This would have been a good time, but not to be. And then for Feast, he just kind of looked very disinterested after he lost that second set, almost like he yeah, I don't want to say tanked, but it was just very kind of like
that last was about John picking Holmgren to qualify. Anyway, I mean, John, you just kind of stole most of mine and Carlos's picks. Anyway, never mind. That's not important at the moment. Cam Norrie, you mentioned, and he's going to have his hometown event in Auckland right now. The two events coming up next week, Auckland and Adelaide, the 250s. Interestingly, in Auckland, when I'm looking at the draw right now, I mean, the top 4 seeds are, I think, all starting their seasons. Stabilo, Baez, Serundolo, Shelton. Of course, Stabilo is the defending champion. But yeah, it looks pretty exciting. I mean, Basavaredi Comesania, that's a round 1 that I think could, favor Nishesh. And then if he plays Stabilo in the second round, maybe that's going to be the story of the week. Or maybe Norrie finally getting that hometown title that in 2023 it was kind of too much for him in terms of just the pressure. And then in 2019 against Sandgren, I guess, that was he was yet to explode at the time.
Yeah, and we could also get Shelton versus Menchik if Menchik gets by Muller. So that's already very exciting, I guess, in the round of 16, maybe.
I kind of forgot that Menchik is playing this too. I mean, to be honest, I think Menchik should withdraw.
Yeah, then you also have, honestly, Tabilo has his work cut out for him because he could play Marozhan or he could play. Tabilo won this tournament last year, so he's gonna.
Didn't Marozhan withdraw?
Oh, is he? I thought he's still in the draw, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think he withdrew.
Oh yeah, okay. This doesn't update it.
Cam Norrie is the hometown. I mean, technically, Cam Norrie was born in Johannesburg, but he was
you're right.
living in Auckland for many years. He was living in Auckland for many years. Misspelling Marozhan. John, if that was how Marozhan was spelled, it would be pronounced Marozhan. I am an expert.
Do you know who's taking Marozhan's place in the draw?
Where was Marozhan in the draw?
I think he was going to play Tabilo if he won against qualifier.
Well, Comesania and Basavaredi are there. Comesania is a lucky loser, Basavaredi is a qualifier.
Oh yeah, no, you already mentioned this. Basavaredi and Tabilo is possible. Yes, okay.
Fabi, probably better Fabi. Anyway, I mean, Adelaide, then the other event, of course, Tommy Paul, pretty often playing here, although I don't think he's won it yet. Thanasi Kokinakis is the match win leader of this tournament historically, and he's won it before with a wild card. Maybe he can produce a run. We just had Sebastian Korda withdrawing from the previous event in Brisbane, so this time maybe he's going to show up. And also Lehechka, the defending champion, is still there, but I mean, I guess it's another question of whether he should even be playing this after Brisbane.
Yes, that's the case. I'm also looking at so I guess you have Tommy there. You also have this. Sorry, I don't know why this is not loading. I'm actually trying to pull up the draw right now for Adelaide. But I mean, Felix and Dennis were supposed to play each other, but I think that actually is not happening anymore.
But then Mahach withdrew, and Felix was already the seed, but because he was moved into the Mahach position as the 5th seed, and then Zhiren Zhang got the 9th seed, then Shapovalov is playing Zhiren Zhang now, and Felix is playing somebody else instead. He has a bye instead, basically. So for Canadian fans, definitely good news there, although they still might play each other in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, they still might in the quarters, although I'm going to be looking at Korda pretty closely. I'll try to see if I can watch most of his matches, because he's coming back.
That's skipping the New Zealand part.
Has Korda played after the US Open? I feel like he hasn't.
He
looked this up, but
no, probably not. Probably not. No, I don't think so.
Since that second round loss, US Open, which was a shame, I remember, because he was in such good form. He had won DC semis in Canada. But
well, I mean, it just seems like we can say this about Seppi Korda at every slam. He was in such good form. He had such good momentum going into the event, and then it all ends up the same.
Contender for Wimbledon, and then oops.
Yeah, precisely. So I think that's all we can really say about Sebastian Korda for now. Hopefully he just gets to play here. Hopefully he is fit. and it's going
Could
to
get
be.
Brandon Nakashima versus Tommy Paul in the quarters for what?
All right, sorry, Ghosty. You mentioned the New Zealand part. I am very unfocused at the moment, as well, someone just basically shot me with something, and we are going to wrap it up in a moment. The qualifying, yes, Jake, I am very excited for it. However, it's rain delayed already. So the beauty of tennis. But well, hopefully we get some action tonight in Melbourne. We are already getting action in Auckland in the main draw, where Luciano Darderi is playing Nuno Borges at the very moment and has 2 set points. I think for now that's basically the only event that's going on. The uber powerful duo in doubles of Baez Komesania is also winning in Auckland. So everybody is...
Is he a dark horse?
Okay, yeah, Bold Vanch probably,
hilarious.
Bold Vanch probably
That's
enjoys
hilarious.
Fonseca as a dark horse.
Oh,
I
gosh.
mean, how did you have the guts, John, to go for Fonseca?
Yeah.
I
It's
cannot
not like
believe it.
he's-
I mean,
it's not like he's got a lot of potential.
he's
But,
probably going to lose to Federico Agustin Gomez, but then if he pulls through, then to Dimitri Popko, and then if he pulls through, then to Tito Androge. But anyway...
I'll tell you kind of an interesting match today in Auckland is Mickelson against Nikala, who qualified. So it's kind of like Indian versus American. I don't know. For me in my circles, it's kind of interesting, but maybe not for everybody else.
If you're Indian American, it might be kind of interesting. I had this great Twitter comment from somebody last year because I made a post about Magdalena Frank getting to, like, you know, what was it, like the 4th highest ranked Polish player ever, I guess, after Świątek, Linet, and Radwańska. And I basically put down, like, I don't know, the top 10 or something like that, and their rankings. You know, I know it's not the most interesting tweet just in general to random people, but, you know, it's a decent stat. And then somebody in the Twitter comments is like, this stat is very interesting if you're Polish. and I, honestly, I mean, first of all, I think it's kind of like wrong. I think it's a pretty decent stat in general when something like that happens. But on the other hand, I also like had a laugh, so I have to appreciate it. Yes, Marwan, it is raining so far in Melbourne. I heard that the weather for today is going to be pretty rough in Australia, but then it should be better the rest of the week. Yeah. 4th highest ranked female Polish player. Well, not on a business card, but if you tell that to somebody in the tennis circles. But yeah, Indian American showdown of Mickelson Nagal coming up today. Anyway, let's wrap this up. Thank you guys for all the streams today. Well,
yeah. Actually, I wanted to get your take on one other thing because you've watched a lot of Hurkacz, and I just saw a tweet from Gil that says, "I think the 5-6 game by Hurkacz to break Fritz for the second set is the best game of tennis I've ever seen him play." Okay, return game.
No, still no. I mean, what was it? The first point was like really good, aggressive. Second point, he hits that backhand winner down the line. But then the third one, he just like survives a few shots, right, defensively. And I think the fourth one is obviously the net cord. So
I don't know. I don't know if this is a dig at Hurkacz because that's not really that okay. But it's.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think that Gil means it as a dig, but it is a bit of a dig. It's a backhanded compliment. It's a backhanded compliment. What is a four-handed compliment? Anyway, this is not important right now. We already got into some pronunciation and linguistics debates with Carlos on the qualifying stream, which was just literally 5 minutes before this one. Anyway, it's time to run for me, and hopefully we're going to get some play in Melbourne soon. Thank you, Vansh. Thank you to everybody in the chat. It was a real streaming marathon for me, but, you know, keep your hopes up and whatever. I'm just glad that I'm kind of like off for the night. Of course, it's going to be a long night trying to stay awake for the matches that hopefully will be played at some point. Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully. There's a lot more content coming your guys' way, actually, for Talking Tennis. So, yeah, stay tuned, subscribe, like, and I guess you know the drill.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.